Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Late Nights with Lenin. Today, our guest will be Morgan or Comrade Barb, and we talk a lot about her time with the Jehovah's Witness, what the role of religion is under a capitalist society, and what Lenin thought about religion in his society. So it's going to be, and also we're going to see how Lenin cracked down on religions, according to the reactionaries, and whether you support it or not. But before we get started, Washington Post wrote the dumbest article today. It's called Biden's Critics Hurl increasingly vulgar taunts. How dare they at Biden? Oh, poor Biden. Increasingly vulgar taunts. And let's see. I'm trying not to look at my phone while also looking at. So, okay. Oh my God. Another sign says part of town. Along with the no trespassing sign, Michael Schwartz uses the black spray paint to scrawl "Joe blows." I thought that was clever, but apparently they don't. That's mild compared to some sentiments in some areas. On Wednesday, he visited Scranton and he was greeted at the corner of a Biden. Wait, why is there a Biden street in any city in the world? Jesus Christ. After the revolution, we are changing all these streets to Patrice Lumumba Street. I don't care. Or Che Guevara Street. I don't know. We're changing all Confederate monuments to Che Guevara, so we have to change all street names like this to Patrice Lumumba. Okay. Oh my God. Why is there a Biden? That's way more offensive than. Oh my God. The fact that there's a Biden street offends me way more. I didn't notice this when I read it the first time. And the F ... Joe Biden sign with an American flag as the vowel in the offending word. Okay. That sounds good. Back in Boys, Rod Johnson. That sounds like a porn star. A retired gunsmith has hung a blue flag from the roof of his home that reads F ... Biden. Underneath in smaller letters he added and F ... you for voting for him. Okay. Okay, during the 2020 presidential campaigns, one of Biden's political superpowers was his sheer unoffensiveness. That is false. I remember he said, poor kids are just as smart as white kids. Let's see, what else did he say? He said that, Jenna, what did he say about black people and voting for him? Like, he said something really horrible.
He actually said, you're not black if you don't vote for me.
Oh, yeah, he said that. And then let's not mention the lie about him getting arrested on Robben Island when he went to visit Nelson Mandela. What did he say? Like a lying pony-faced, no, a lying dog-faced pony soldier. There
Yeah.
were tons of
he was in a lot of the you know, a lot of the people that confronted him, and there was even like a worker. There was a you know, like
yeah, he called him a horse's ass.
yeah, and because he was he was asking him something that pertained to like
workers' rights. And then let's not forget how Joe Biden confessed that he knew Saddam Hussein did not have any weapons of mass destruction, but he still voted for the Iraq War, even though he knew for a fact that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass. See, but the thing is that they just prove what is offensive to them is when poor people or people lower on the totem pole show them visible disrespect. What's not offensive to them is him insulting black people. I swear to God, he made a super racist statement against Asians. And I actually, because I remember this, because I wrote an article about how racist his statement against Asians was. I can't remember what it was, but he did make a really racist statement against Asians. What else did he do? Oh yeah, oh my God, the pop. The pool with the black kids and corn pop.
Yeah, corn pop. Well, he was I don't know when that was. Like he was telling a story about
that was just gross.
Being a lifeguard, and it was just
like how he yeah, it was just bizarre.
The little black kids would swim up to his legs.
Yeah. That was just gross. Yeah, he was like, to call him inoffensive, it's just wrong. The innocuous grandfather. Oh my God, there was nothing innocuous about him. He promised to. The bumbling uncle, the leader who could make America calm and steady. No, what is this BS? Okay. The vitriol partly reflects Trump's own repeated claims that Biden is an usurper. Who cares? And it's not like, and partly stems from Biden actions that Republicans deplore. Okay. He hasn't done anything deplorable to them. Yet the anger demonstrates how a political party or a cause needs an enemy. A target of vilification that can unite its adherents. This is where they almost get it, but they don't. On purpose. Boos and jeers are nothing. Especially for those who reach the White House. I mean, they should all go to Nuremberg, or The Hague, but I mean, this is less than nothing. Former President George W. Bush was heckled. Yes. Muntazir al-Zaidi. And Muntazir al-Zaidi said Americans need to learn to throw their own shoes at their president. As well, okay, weathering protests along with their motorcade roads. Who cares? At one 2011 fundraiser with rich donors, a heckler called Obama the Antichrist. Accurate. F-Trump graffiti was adorned in some walls in Washington. Sure, why not? The current eruption of anti-Biden signs and chants, however, are another level, far more vulgar and widespread. This is why I wish the Soviet Union was still around, because it would remind them of what is really vulgar and widespread. Because this is like, compared to going the way of the Tsar, this is awesome. And they don't even know how good they have it. And it's really funny because the Soviet Union scared the bourgeoisie so much that in China, the king totally re-educated himself and then started to talk about how bad he was when he was a king. And it's all because they knew it was always a possibility to go the way of Tsar Nikolai. And that was very, very real, and that was very scary for the bourgeoisie. So, I mean, come on. Okay, who cares? Okay, yes, everywhere because he's not doing crap. Others are bought on Amazon, so it sounds like you can. So if they're bought on Amazon, it sounds like you guys can do something about this and just stop selling it on Amazon if it's so offensive. Whatever. Then there are the chants. In early October, Joe Biden cry broke out among the Alabama's Talladega crowd. And Kelly Stavast, an NBC reporter, was interviewing NASCAR driver Brandon Barr live on air. At the time she quipped, "You can hear the chants from the crowd. Let's go, Brandon." Trump supporters instantly saw these signs of a cover-up, claiming that this sounds like a confession. So was NBC like pretending no one was saying Joe Biden and pretending they were saying let's go? It is okay. This sounds like a confession. So okay. Let's go, Brandon Biden. But who cares? Ultimately, who bloody cares? And not enough people are cursing out America's leadership. And I mean, come on. So this seems like Washington Post is upset that the consent is not manufacturing as well as it used to manufacture in the good old days of the Cold War. But life is also not as nice as it used to be for most American workers as the good old days of the Cold War, when they were actually scared because, well, the Soviet Union existed. Today, I'm working on an article about the Panama invasion, and today, because for the first time I've been able to search and understand Russian records, like the Soviet records, that I realized that they literally the presence of a Russian was enough to frighten the crap out of them, and enough for them to sign over a treaty to give all Omar Torrijos did was get this KGB dude to Panama and gave him a tour or something. They didn't even promise anything. They didn't even talk about anything. And that was enough to get Carter to sign the Panama Canal Treaty to cede control back. And then they killed Omar Torrijos. Apparently in the same plane that he flew the KGB guy. But yeah. I think I'm going on a tangent, but it doesn't matter. Please become a super subscriber or a super chatter, and I can use it. And not Maggie Carp said not vulgar enough. I agree. This is thank you so much, Connie. That's so adorable. Okay, so if I had time, go through his. I'm sure we could. Yeah, I mean, I already have 10,000. Leonida. No minute. 1 minute. Let me just read it. Okay, I'll pop it up. Hold on. Give me 1 second. What's his name? Give me 1 second. I will just tell you what the name of the KGB guy's name is as soon as my notes load up. See, it's so weird how my language skills are so compartmentalized that I literally cannot okay. His name is Nikolai Leonov. No, it was Nikolai Leonov. Okay. Leonov, maybe. No, yeah, it's Nikolai Leonov. Okay. Anyways, today it's going to be a fun episode. So please bring your friends, your family, make it a group event. Share it on Caleb Maupin's Discord or whatever crap his fans or followers go to. Good evening, Shire. Okay. Anyways, wait. Oh, I forgot about the. Oh my, there's. Actually, okay, sorry. We're not ready yet. Okay, so I got overly hyper focused on this Washington Post article that I forgot the main thing about this show. Okay, so this week Colin Powell died. Check out our episode with Steph Zamorano and Pat Cody. Where we read Lenin's In Memory of Count Hayden Rumsfeld and now Colin Powell. And nothing's changed. So I've seen things like he's haunted by his decisions in Iraq. No, he's just haunted by all the people he killed in Iraq, probably. What else? Flawed hero. Vietnam War vet. Yes, and McCain was above all a great man. That's exactly what Lenin was making fun of with Count Hayden being above all a great man. Even though he literally whipped his slaves for not warming the wine or something like that. Yeah. Well, friend of the show, Uncle_Authority or Matt, made a really nice video where he took excerpts from Colin Powell's own book, where he confessed to his war crimes. So let's just play that.
Images of going to war were formed by 40s newsreels, 50s movies, and early 60s TV documentaries, and war was always in black and white. My arrival in Vietnam shattered all the preconceptions. This was not war movies on a Saturday afternoon. It was real, and it was ugly. We came upon a deserted village. The people had fled at our approach, except for an old woman too feeble to move. We burned down the thatched huts. Why were we torching houses and destroying crops? Ho Chi Minh had said the people were like the sea in which his guerrillas swam. Our problem was to distinguish friendly or at least neutral fish from the VC swimming alongside. We tried to solve the problem by making the whole sea uninhabitable. I had no qualms about what we were doing. It all made sense in those days. I had seen men hurt, I had seen men die, but I had yet to see the enemy.
One of the hardest documentaries to watch is there's this disabled man from, I believe, the United Kingdom. He's in a wheelchair and he goes to visit this, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but this children's hospital in Vietnam where they're still have kids being born with the worst birth defects because of all the Agent Orange, even today. And I believe this documentary was about 8 or 9 years old. So, yeah, he was a disgusting person. And now that I know what he did in Panama, oh my, yeah. And Jamal Bowman, oh my, okay, I'm going to now go on. With like Rest in Power, and he had, that was just a bad tweet. I mean, just Iraq should be enough to disgust people, but then he literally confessed to torching villages. This is like the worst war crimes. I mean, you do not torch, torching entire villages and making it uninhabitable is so disgusting. The war crimes have never been addressed in any court, not even a world court, even a kangaroo court. Well, okay. Well, we'll see. I mean, revenge is a dish. That was a Klingon proverb, I believe. Revenge is a dish best served cold. So you have to wait until you're not hot and angry, but cold and calculating. Yeah. So, and like once you understand his role in Panama and what he did, which for the article I'm working on, it's really hard to not be Oh, and then the first Iraq War, incubator babies, the highway of death. It's just disgusting. I think that's about it. Anyways, Aeolus Drift said Jamal Bowman and the rest of the progressive caucus makes the Fabians look principled. Yeah, the Fabian Society is what gave birth to the London School of Economics. Yeah, they kind of suck. Anyways, yeah, it's their need to ingratiate. It's their lack of class. It's everything. I can't even verbalize that right now. But let's play our interview with Comrade Birb, and you guys are going to love this. And hopefully we'll be back afterwards to take questions or comments or just talk about nonsense.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Good. I check out your blog often. It's very interesting. What made you start it?
I really started to radicalize after the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, and I'm a sexual assault survivor, and I actually have complex PTSD. And I ended up in hypervigilance for several months after those hearings.
What does that mean?
And what that means is hypervigilance as part of, a trauma response is constantly feeling like I'm in danger, like there's a threat. So you're constantly in fight or flight mode. And it's like amplified. Like I wasn't.
Is that the same thing where like Iraq war vets come in like they're starting to fight with garbage cans?
Somewhat. It's for me, it manifested as it was almost like being in a manic state where I couldn't sleep much. I was doing a lot of writing just in notebooks, and it was like things were spilling out of my mind that I didn't necessarily recognize were there. And I kind of reached the conclusion. I kept going through flowcharts mentally in my mind of how do we fix society's problems? And I had already been anti-corporatist, but then I realized it's the entire system. Yep. And so I started realizing that I aligned with Marx on things, and I was starting to read, I read the Communist Manifesto, and I thought, well, this is exactly the kind of conclusions I've been coming to. And I realized that's where my politics were. And then as I started learning theory and more of our real history, I felt like I had an obligation to share what I was learning with others, because this has all been kept from us. It's been obfuscated and some just deliberately hidden. And I mean, some of the stuff's only been declassified, in the past 15 years, some of this stuff. And as I learned, I felt like I needed an outlet to help others see through the evil of this system like I have and work for something better.
That makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of comments. So let me start with my first one. Yeah. The first comment is that often people think that they're 100% being lied to, and then they don't understand how to you can actually find the truth in even the worst of the newspapers in America if you know where they're coming from. So Lenin always talks about this. It's the class point of view. So if you understand that New York Times speaks on behalf of American, I don't know, whatever, like what he said about The Economist, eventually you'll understand, they mean communism is authoritarian because they're making corporations follow laws. Okay. And then you'll kind of realize, this is from the landlord's point of view. So unfortunately, like a lot of progressives just kind of think like, I remember a few days ago, somebody on one of my streams was like, people still think Chilean Pinochet helped the economy. And then I had to explain to them that the reason why they think that is because it helped them make more profit. So that's the first thing, is looking at the class point of view. And you'll see that, literally everything New York Times does. I'm just using New York Times because that's just the first thing that's coming off of my mind.
Newspaper of record.
I know, it just comes out in my mind. So that's why I'm just picking on them. But I'm sure there are like others are just as horrible. It's just like, I don't have it in my mind right now. Let's see. The second thing you said is that, the thing is, if once you understand the economic basis or like the way the machine spins, it's like, of course, while it just kind of, you understand what's purpose and what it does, and you'll see that it just it just creates the whole world as it is. So that's the second one. The third one is helping people see the light. And I think that's how we got here. Unfortunately, that one is not as easy. In fact, even Lenin was a little skeptical of there ever being anything useful happening from the Imperial Corps, or Lenin's wife at least. In one of his last things, either Lenin, towards the end, I don't know if it was just all Nadezhda or if it was Lenin and Nadezhda or what was going on there after he had his stroke. But either Lenin or his wife thought that, or both of them together thought that it was increasingly hard to have anything revolutionary going on in the Imperial Corps.
Right. You know, I grew up being raised in the Jehovah's Witnesses cult. And I escaped in 1996. I was 26 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so I did my own deprogramming basically to get out of there.
Can you talk a little bit about it if you feel comfortable?
Yeah. I started to see hypocrisy within. There were different standards for different people within. The Jehovah's Witnesses have a very huge problem with pedophiles. They've moved pedophiles around to different congregations.
That sounds like the Catholic Church.
It is very much like it. And they also attack the victims because the Jehovah's Witnesses have a rule based in scripture that if one member of the congregation brings accusations against another, there have to have been at least two witnesses to the wrongdoing.
Okay. And no one's going to rape people in front of witnesses.
And families have been, entire families, when they've come forward for their children, have been disfellowshipped, which is an excommunication punishment. And when you have, it's a little more impactful than most Catholic people I know, because most Catholic people I know have friends outside of their religion. Whereas the Jehovah's Witnesses don't want you to have any meaningful relationships outside of the cult. And so it was a real threat being posed that if you continue to accuse them or if you go to the police about this, you're going to be disfellowshipped because they deny doing it. And I mean, the organization since I left has had several court rulings against them to the point where they changed their corporation name from the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society to jw.org, which is why you see that on all their kingdom halls now. There's a sign that says jw.org. And that was to somehow avoid the multi-million-dollar legal settlements. So leaving them it meant abandoning my entire social structure. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, my family had started. My dad left a couple years before I did. Mm-hmm. And then my mom and my brothers were never really into it. And I had one cousin who was still in it for 3 years after I was, but I helped get her out. And it's like, I look at now trying to help people, and I realize that a lot of it is like trying to help my former friends and the Jehovah's Witnesses. They are so deeply conditioned and indoctrinated to see me as evil. And so, because I'm regarded as an apostate since I speak against the Jehovah's Witness cult, that, they're not allowed to talk to me. That's part of the excommunication process, because if they're found talking to me or anyone else like me, they can be excommunicated for just doing that. So they're terrified. And in a way, I think there's a parallel with a lot of people who are afraid to go against the establishment because they're concerned about how their family, friends, coworkers, the impact it will have on them socially if they go against the grain. And I know that's not everyone, but I think that there's a big parallel for a lot of people, just like there was with my former Jehovah's Witness friends who, the Jehovah's Witnesses have been predicting Armageddon in my lifetime. It was 1975, then it was 1980, then, it was 2000.
2070 though.
Yeah. It's like they and their version of Armageddon is basically a cleansing of the planet so that it's, only Jehovah's Witnesses
like
and they can rebuild it. Pretty much. So, yeah. So, I have religious trauma, diagnosed, and I'm in treatment for that and a lot of other things with my therapy, trauma wise. And I think that I just think that there's a lot of parallels, not only from that becoming a social pariah standpoint, but also the methods that they've used to indoctrinate people. There's a lot of parallels. It's inculcate starting when children are young.
Hold on one second.
Belief system. Yeah.
Oh no! Actually, I'll let you finish and then I'll comment. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And
sorry. So you said inculcate?
Yes, inculcate the children in the Jehovah's Witnesses.
What does inculcate mean? I'm not. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like indoctrination. It's pretty much like you have drilled that into those kids' minds so much they can repeat it back to you by heart. So like when I was 5 and my parents were really serious about converting, that was the last year that I had birthday holidays, because Jehovah's Witnesses don't do that. And they started reading to me out of the book that the Watchtower Society at the time had written, especially for children, called The Greatest Teacher That Ever Lived. It
Lenin.
Was hot pink and had like a turquoise blue lettering on it.
But it was not about Lenin, right?
No.
Okay. Otherwise, I totally agree. If it was like about Lenin, you can say the greatest teacher that has ever lived.
I absolutely agree too. And I remember learning about the headship principle, the biblical headship principle. So that was God's in charge of Jesus, according to the Jehovah's Witnesses. Jesus is in charge of the congregation. The congregation is basically in charge of everyone, but the husband must look to the congregation for direction. But within the household, women are to be submissive to their husbands. So the headship principle went husband, wife,
Weird.
and then their children underneath. And even as a 5-year-old, I saw that and went, so I'm powerless at the bottom. So
Yeah.
in the same way, it's basically like a pyramid almost, just like capitalism.
Wait, have you seen the Tsarist Russia? Let me see. Give me 1 second. I'll find it.
Okay.
In Tsarist Russia, like the Bolsheviks had an infographic that is exactly about this.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Okay, so it says we rule, or Tsarutsya means like to be a czar. Me za vas. Can you please cut out what I say in Russian, please? Okay. Molitsa. We manage, I guess. Sidit. We sudit. I don't know what that means. And then here they say that we arhanyam. We fight. And then here it says we karmit, we tell, and then the last one, and then you work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of like the Jehovah's Witness pyramid too. This is from 1905,
Yes.
the Tsarist Russia. So basically they want to create like a mini Tsarist Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's like they are all about the control. You know, they want to control not just your behavior, but your thoughts. They want you to think the way they want you to think.
Mhm.
And it's very similar. You know, in capitalist, I call it white supremacist mythology, like rugged individualism, manifest destiny, all these things in service of white supremacy.
Hold on a second. Let me push back a little bit on this.
Yeah.
I try to stay away from the idea of white supremacy because Americans don't understand that even when you don't have white people, like in Tibet or Russia or whatever other country where whiteness is not a relevant metric, you're still going to have the same kind of oppressors. So,
for sure.
That's why I try not to use the word white supremacy. But what it is yes, it's the myth of the, it's basically, the manifest destiny. I call manifest destiny basically. The manifest destiny is identical to Lebensraum.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's from Hitler. So it is basically the way they keep the hierarchy going with this. And every hierarchy has a very similar myth. So that's the first thing. But go ahead. But go ahead. I'll listen to the rest before I jump in.
Oh, gotcha. Where did I leave off?
They want to control your thoughts.
Yeah. They would give us like some of their publications. There was one called Reasoning from the Scriptures, and that was something for us to use out in the door-to-door work.
Do you have a sample? Because I haven't. For me, it's like I don't have a reference frame.
Right. So the basis of the book was you could look up by subject matter what people might object to or try to stop conversations. And then it would give you a script. Yeah.
You're knocking on my door. I don't want you near me.
Oh, I know. And it's like I had to grow up being told, oh, well, you have a right to be at that door. We won the right in the Supreme Court. I mean, there were several Supreme Court rulings.
To be at my door?
Yeah, at everyone's door.
How did you guys, wait, can you explain that?
So this was like back in the early 20th century. Let me try and call it up.
Okay. So how?
The SCOTUS rulings. Let's see. Between 1939 and 1950, the witnesses won 14 of 19 of their cases before the Supreme Court. I can send you the link for that.
That would be great. I'll figure out why they have a right to be at my door.
Yeah. And it's, and now they're not going door to door because of COVID. And also because they think that we've entered what they call the Great Tribulation, which is the period before Armageddon. So when COVID started, they said everybody's going to meet remotely with Zoom. Yeah. And they've been doing that. And the thought is because the JW.org, back in the 80s, we used to do things called quick build kingdom halls, which was the idea was you had all volunteer labor and you'd try to complete all or most of a kingdom hall building, one of their places of worship, in a weekend, like a long weekend.
Crazy. Sounds like crazy. Like, how do you, like, they
did it a few times.
And none of you guys are builders. And how do you know, like, it's not going to like fall apart or kill everyone?
They would bring in builders. Somehow they would they had, other witnesses from other states that would be doing that as a profession, and they'd bring them in to lead everyone. And so I worked on them, and it meant that I carried cinder blocks. We were basically gophers, and, but back then the JW organization became the mortgager of all kingdom halls.
What does that mean?
They are the ones being paid because they have enough money that they could fund the building of all these kingdom halls and then be like the bank that the congregation pays back. But
that
they were the owner.
Jesus-like.
Yeah. And they, but they would also make up if a congregation couldn't make their full payment, they'd make up for it. They'd scold you to get more contributions. But they, so the thought is now they have a lot of valuable real estate around the world, and that maybe they're looking to sell that and go all virtual. They do these weird things. They have a governing body, which is that's the top of their pyramid before you get into Jesus and God. And the governing body in New York does these weird videos for the whole world where they're, what is it? Where it's like a voiceover. It's not even their real voices. It's weird. A lot of them wear Rolexes, and, but they, even with the Zoom meetings, all members are to have their cameras on. They have to be dressed in dress clothes like they would have been to go to the Kingdom Hall. And they have to participate in socializing before and after the meetings on Zoom, or they will get counseled. So it's like, even in their own homes, they're being controlled to this day. It's almost gotten worse because now the elders can look in on their homes, the elders from their congregation, to decide, they need counseling on this or that. And so technology has broadened the reach of their control, much like it has under capitalism with all of the surveillance that we're under. And just another parallel.
Okay. So I agree with you about a lot of these things, but what people don't understand is that indoctrination itself is insufficient without some basis in reality. So that's what, I've been trying to argue with all the the new American patriotism dumbness. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they don't seem to understand the reason why anti-communist propaganda worked here in the US is because there is a reality that didn't conflict too much with the propaganda. It conflicted if you went to Indonesia, Iraq, whatever other country, but it didn't conflict too much here at one point in time. But then they did look at what they couldn't just it would have, if they could just spew out anti-communist propaganda in Vietnam and Indonesia, it would have been much easier and much cheaper, but they couldn't. That's why they needed to go war in Korea, Vietnam, and do the death squads in Indonesia and dump people out of the helicopters in Chile. So often it's not your fault. Often Americans don't understand that you can't just, even George Orwell noticed this. He said, Hitler can say that the Jews started the war, and if he wins, he probably will. But he can't make 2 + 2 = 4 because for ballistic purposes, no, 2 plus 2 equals 5, because for ballistic purposes, it needs to equal 4 or something like that.
Mhm.
And so it has to, like, the propaganda only works if it matches the person's reality in some way. Of course, if you just dig a little, you're gonna, it's a house of cards, and it's surprisingly easy to make it fall apart. But unfortunately, this is where I think you and I disagree in that, yes, like, how many, I'm just curious statistically, or what, if you know, how many people leave the church versus how many stay? That's like a very interesting group.
You know, what's interesting is that what we're seeing statistically is that people who've been raised in it are leaving. The kids are leaving. The kids are not staying. They're seeing, and it's pretty much for the past 20 years. So since technology in the home or even at school has been more accessible, and if something is said at one of those meetings and a kid goes, well, wait a minute, because they still teach creationism over evolution, and they have whole books on it that they've written. They misquoted Carl Sagan in their evolution book that was published in the late 80s or early 90s. And in Demon Haunted World, he takes them to task for it. But you know, they used ellipses around his quotation to make it sound as though he supported creationism, and he was rightfully outraged by that. So kids who are learning, and they're saying, well, wait a minute, no, this isn't a question anymore, that's just one example, and they start questioning things, and then they could go and search on the web and see that, plus there's a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a lot of us online, and there've been websites that have come and gone that are like discussion zones for people. And a lot of times current witnesses would come in on those. Now the central place for that seems to be a subreddit for XJWs. And we see people come on there that are currently, and they call it PIMO, PIMO, physically in, mentally out. But they're trapped there because they're either minors who are still in their parents' home, or they're just financially trapped where they're at in a witness home and can't leave. So they go through the motions, but they don't believe it anymore.
Okay. Well, it's kind of funny because we already did this piece, unfortunately, with Meg, because I think she was raised in a religious household too.
Yeah.
But it's called, check out that episode. It's really funny. It's called Political Education. Oh, from the class point of view. And Lenin has a really funny quote. What is it? Let me find that one quote. Hold on. Let me read it. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. The Orthodox faith is dear to them because it teaches people to bear misery uncomplainingly. What a profitable faith it is for the governing classes in a society so organized that an insignificant minority enjoys the wealth and power while the masses constantly suffer privations and bear severe obligations. It is quite natural for the exploiters to sympathize with a religion that teaches people to bear uncomplainingly the hell on earth for the sake of an alleged celestial paradise.
Yes.
Okay, but sadly we finished this piece. So let me, can you talk a little bit more about, hold on, give me 1 second. I'll find another piece. I'm sure he has others like where he makes fun of religion. But yeah, unfortunately, so it's funny because I don't know. I wonder, when did Jehovah's Witness start anyways?
They were part of the Millerite movement in the 1800s that also spawned like the Seventh-day Adventists. And there was a break. I forget the year, but there was a break between the actual Jehovah's Witnesses and the Bible students. And I don't know if they're still a thing. If they are, I think their numbers are a lot smaller. What was interesting is the man who started it, Charles Taze Russell, when he died, I think it was, it might have been the 30s that he died. They brought in a new leader called Judge Rutherford. And evidently, I've come to learn he was quite a drunk, a womanizer. He didn't really believe it, but he saw basically the economic value of the organization. So he kind of went along with it and was a good orator. You know, he would give these speeches that were very compelling. You know, he spoke at Cedar Point, like before it was, you know, really the modern day amusement park that it is. That was like covered by the news. They had a lot of stuff. Like they would have meetings at Yankee Stadium in the 1950s. They'd have big stuff. So the history, what's interesting is that now in the past year or two, that all of the Kingdom Halls have been told to clear their library shelves of any of the publications prior to a certain year.
Why?
Because if people were to have access
Is it racist
to that,
or something?
some of it is.
Okay.
And it's also very telling about how they have gone back and forth on a lot of matters. Like for a long time, they they decided somewhere in the 30s or 40s, I think it was, that if you got an organ donation, you were actually, according to the Bible, committing cannibalism.
What?
Yeah. And then it was in 1967, they have this feature in one of their magazines called Questions from the Readers. And so people would write into the headquarters and ask you things, and then they'd publish an answer from the governing body. And someone wrote in about, you know, receiving a donated organ. And they said, well, we basically, the light has gotten brighter on these scriptures for us. So you can take organ donations now.
Wait. Can I okay. I'm sorry. I lost it. Okay. So for how did they change their mind again? I guess
they decided that the scriptures were revealed to them that made them have a better understanding.
So before then, they banned organ donations
or receiving one, and they've had a long time ban on blood transfusions. Even if you stored your own blood for an operation in advance, that was not acceptable. Since then, they've gotten down into what blood is, you know, what actually in blood is blood. Is plasma blood? Is it the red blood cells? Is it this? It's gotten into like petty stuff, and they come out with new, you know, rulings on that. But can you imagine being someone who lost someone they loved because they couldn't get a kidney transplant because it was cannibalism, and then suddenly just casually, they called receiving a donated organ. If you had like kidney failure and you needed someone's donated kidney, you weren't allowed to do it because that would be akin to cannibalism, was their teaching for several decades. So
okay, so let's see. Okay, right now I'm trying to. There are quite a few good pieces where Lenin talks about it. So I'm trying to figure out which one's the best. So give me one more minute.
Sure.
So what I noticed is that, like, how to explain it? It seems like religion, how do you say, man makes God in his image as opposed to God makes man in, you know what I mean? Because a religion often is just a reflection of society as opposed to like a lot of progressives who grew up in religious households are like, oh, wait, religion is a problem, but it's just a reflection of like, it can be either depending on what society is, right? Yeah, so you'll see. Did you get it?
I did.
Tell me when you're ready.
Screen. I'm ready.
Go for it.
You want me to start reading?
Yeah.
All right. According to reports in the press, the congresses of small landowners and deans of churches and 48 gubernias.
Gubernias are like states.
Gubernias? Got it. Thank you for that pronunciation. I wasn't sure.
It doesn't matter.
Of European Russia have elected 7,990 delegates, including 8,000.
Wait, this has to be a typo.
Yeah.
Because 80%, okay, I'll figure out what, just skip this one and I will figure out what the real thing was. Because this website is really bad with typos and that they have some sort of automatic scanner. So it's filled with typos.
Gotcha. Should I start from the complete returns?
Yeah.
The complete returns for the 50 gubernias cannot much alter this result. Let us therefore see what these elections signify. The law provides that the small landowners and the parishes shall elect one delegate per electoral category established for participation in the Landowners' Congress. This means that the number of delegates must be proportional to the amount of land owned by the electorate.
Okay, that's like a little bit more brazen than modern USA, but
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Statistics for 1905 give the following data for the 50 gubernias of European Russia. Church estate.
Okay, let me read this part. Church estates, 1,900,000 dесятines. It's a little over an acre. Land privately owned by priests, 300,000 dесятines. Total owned by priests. Holy God. 2,200,000 dесятines. Lands privately owned by townspeople, 3,700,000. Lands privately owned by village peasantry, 13,200,000 dесятines. Lands privately held by other categories, 2,200,000 dесятines. Total small holdings owned by laymen, 19,100,000 dесятines.
Should I start?
Yeah, this seems to be so. This was an accident, but this seems like a perfect transition when you said that the Jehovah's Witness Church owns a lot of land.
I was thinking about the same thing because they don't just own the kingdom halls; they have headquarters in countries that are these massive, buildings, and they have convention assembly halls that they've built.
Like, do they rent that out to let's say if I want to have a party or something? Like, do they rent
no,
that? They don't. Okay, then what?
No, they have the assembly halls, and so each congregation is part of a circuit. So that's say maybe 20, 25 congregations.
Hold on. How is that profitable for them to just hold that land if they aren't renting it out?
I'm not sure. They've sold a lot of it off. I mean, this was land that a lot of it, in a lot of cases, was purchased in the 80s.
Okay.
So they've had it for decades, and they've been selling. I mean, they sold their headquarters in Brooklyn, which is in what's now called the Dumbo area, the Columbia Heights area.
Oh.
They sold that to Kushner's family, Jared Kushner's family. Yeah. So, and they've gone upstate with their headquarters, and they're building some elaborate thing. Pardon?
Are you in New York too?
No, I'm in Michigan, but
we're in Michigan. I grew up in Michigan.
Oh, cool. I'm south of Flint. I'm between Heartland and Flint.
Okay, my parents live in Kalamazoo.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we were just over in Battle Creek last week because my spouse is a network engineer, and we had to go to a colo facility over in Battle Creek. So kind of on that side of the state.
Yeah. Well, next time I should give you my. Yeah. Well, we'll connect.
I'd love to see you if you come and visit. That would
of course I will.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Whenever I will. Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Okay. So go ahead.
So these data probably take account of small holdings to a lesser extent than of the lands owned by the priesthood. Nevertheless, it follows that the small private holdings total 21,000,000 300,000 desiatines, of which priests own 2,200,000 desiatines, or a little over 1/10. Yet the priesthood has elected upwards of 8/10 of the total number of delegates. Wow. How could that come about? It was simple enough. The fact is that small landowners seldom go to elections. They lack the means and take little interest in the matter. Besides, the police put 1,000 obstacles in the way of free elections. The priests, however, have all been induced to attend. The priests will vote for the candidates who suit the government.
As in the czar.
Yeah. This explains why even the landlords are murmuring, to say nothing of the bourgeoisie. The Octobrists and the nationalists are...
Hold on. The Octobrists are like the moderate Romney Republicans. They formed that's where Count Hayden is from. And then the nationalists are just like the nut chops.
Okay. Yeah. Like the chuds.
I don't know if they're chuds, but the main difference is the nationalists like had entire armies, so they were like much more dangerous, I'd say.
That's fair. The Octobrists and the nationalists are murmuring too. They accuse the government of engineering the elections. That
sounds familiar.
Some parallels. Yeah. But the landlords and the big bourgeoisie themselves would like to engineer the elections. Sounds very familiar. Thus, there is a clash between absolutism on the one hand and the landlords and the bourgeoisie bigwigs on the other. The government wanted to secure the backing of the landlords and the top strata of the bourgeoisie. As is known, this area underlies the whole law of June 3rd, 1907.
Yeah, in 1907, they kind of made it a little less democratic. And basically, it was like the number of votes you got was like proportional to the amount of land or wealth you had.
That it sounds so familiar.
Yeah, no. We went over this system like in one of the previous episodes. I can't remember which one, but yeah, it is extremely familiar.
Yeah. I'm thinking. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, if anything, I bet I'm going to get in trouble, but I don't care. If anything, Tsarist Russia probably was slightly more democratic. I forgot the calculation, but it was in the episode where we had once more about the Duma or something where we did do a calculation.
Yeah. Well, and I'm reminded of the Federalist Papers 10, in which James Madison blatantly states that
the purpose of the state is to protect those with property from those without. Yep.
So that's the entire purpose of the state. And
this state. Yep.
Not
so the state,
I'm
but
reminded.
This state.
Yeah, this state. That's a very fair point. Let's see. As it happens, however, the government cannot get along even with the Octobrists. It has not succeeded in organizing even a feudal bourgeois monarchy of a kind satisfactory to those classes. Unquestionably, this failure has in fact been acknowledged by the government, which has set about organizing its own officials in the shape of the subordinate dependent priesthood. In the science of history, this device of government, which retains the essential features of absolutism, is called Bonapartism.
I had no idea. So Bonapartism is like monarchy, but not, they just don't say monarch. I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So related to Napoleon?
Yeah.
Okay. In this case, it is not definite classes that serve as a support, or not they alone, and not chiefly, but hand-picked elements, mostly from among various dependent sections of the population. How is the possibility of this phenomenon to be explained in sociological terms, i.e., from the standpoint of the class struggle? It is due to a balance between the forces of the hostile or rival classes?
Purishkevich was the largest landowner in Russia. I forgot who Guchkov. Guchkov was like a Black Hundred, but I can't remember exactly who he was. So let me just look that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Alexander was chairman of the Third Duma, and he was the minister of war in the Kerensky fake provisional government. And let's see. Oh, no. Okay. So let's see what happened he survived the revolution. In the evening, Guchkov was arrested and they should have shot him. Oh, damn. Okay. On March 2nd, 1917, in the evening, after the February Revolution and the Union of 17 October, that's the Octobrists, legally ceased to exist, Guchkov held the office as the war minister. Okay, I'm going to get these dates confused, so I'm just going to say March, April, depending on which calendar you use. He was forced to resign after the Milyukov telegram. So the Milyukov telegram was drafted by Milyukov, who was another idiot like Tsarist, and he basically passing he was basically wanting to so the allies, as in fuck us, which is France, US, UK, France, UK, US, or fuck us. That alliance did not really want Russia to leave World War I, but they kind of had to because everything was falling apart. So then Milyukov's telegram sends a reassurance to the allies that, hey, I know we just had the Tsar abdicate, but don't worry about it, allies. We will continue with the World War I, and that caused a big riot. So that's when Guchkov was forced to resign. Hold on, I'm gonna continue. Let me figure out who else he is. Okay, and then. After the October Revolution, Guchkov financed the White Army, and the White Army is like the KKK, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then when the White Army became inevitable, when the White Army lost, he somehow magically ended up in. He magically ended up in Germany and then Paris. I wonder how this always happens.
Convenient.
Yeah. It's you'd be surprised at the amount of czarists that ended up in Paris. It's no, it's so strange. Okay. But anyways, that's who Guchkov is. Oh, and then the third one. Let me figure out what the third one is.
Is that Rhea Bushinsky?
Yeah, but
Raya.
I need to look at the Russian
gotcha.
name. Otherwise, I can't because English transliterations are hard, but Russian pronunciations are easy. So, Pavel. Okay, his name is Pavel Pavlovich Ryabushinsky.
Okay.
He also magically died in Paris. I wonder how this keeps happening. But he was an entrepreneur, and he ran away. He was a cadet. Okay, got it. And then after the February Revolution, he ran away, I guess.
Yipe.
Okay. So okay. So let's continue.
Okay. If, for example, the Purishkeviches are competing with the Guchkovs, and I can't roll my R's.
And Ruya, okay, it's okay. I'll do it. Ruya Bushinsky.
Thank you. The government may, provided there is a certain balance between the forces of these rivals, gain greater independence within certain rather narrow limits, of course, than when either of these classes has a decisive superiority.
Okay, so the difference between Perishkovich and Guchkov is the same difference between, say, Romney and Tom Cotton. So Perishkoviches are more like the Tom Cottons, and the Guchkovs are more like the Romneys.
Okay. Yeah, that gives some good perspective.
So Guchkov was an Octoberist, doesn't like the 17th October. Yeah. So
gotcha.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If on the other hand, this government is historically linked by continuity and so on with especially vivid forms of absolutism, and if militarist and bureaucratic traditions and the sense of non-electivity of judges and officials are strong in the country, then the limits of that independence will be still greater. Its manifestations more open, the methods used in picking voters and electors voting on orders from above still more crude, and tyranny still more tangible.
Oh my God, so familiar. So the government picking the voters and the electors voting on.
Electoral college, anyone?
Yeah, no, I mean, even gerrymandering everything in the U.S. elections, like the way they draw the congressional districts, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. A few years back, I read the book. It's called like Rat Fucked, I think. You may have to bleep that. But that's the term they used for how they redivided all of the congressional districts. So they knew exactly what they were doing. Of course,
they always know, because the purpose
very
of
deliberate.
State. No, I mean, obviously the purpose of a state is to basically to oppress one class over the other. Since we haven't had a revolution, we still have the same state. So basically, yeah, of course, they're going to always have to, it's like a constant war against democracy. So they know, of course,
Tyranny still more tangible. That phrase is going to stick for me. It is something like this that contemporary Russia is passing through. The step towards transformation into a bourgeois monarchy is made more difficult by the borrowing of Bonapartist methods. Whereas in France, the bourgeois monarchy and the Bonapartist empire differed clearly and sharply from each other, in Germany, Bismarck gave models of a combination of the two types, with those features which Marx called military despotism, to say nothing of Bonapartism, obviously predominating. It is said that the carp likes to be fried in sour cream. We don't know whether the Philistine likes to be fried in a bourgeois monarchy, in old feudal absolutism, in the latest type of Bonapartism, or in military despotism, or lastly, in a certain blend of all of these methods. But while the distinction may seem very small from the point of the view of the Philistine and the so-called legal order, i.e. from a purely juridical, formerly constitutional point of view, it is substantial from the point of view of the class struggle. It won't make things easier for the Philistine to know that he is being beaten not only in the old way, but in the new as well. But the stability of a regime pressing down the Philistine, the conditions of development, and the disintegration of this regime and its capacity to suffer a rapid fiasco, all depend to a large degree on whether we are confronted with more or less evident, open, solid, and direct forms of rule of definite classes, or with various indirect, unstable forms of their rule. The rule of classes is harder to eliminate than the unstable forms of the superstructure steeped in the shabby spirit of old times and supported by a picked electorate.
Oh, that sounds so familiar.
Very, very.
Okay.
The experiment of Sabler and Makarov in organizing the priesthood for the Fourth Duma elections should be of considerable interest to everyone, both sociologically and in terms of practical politics.
Yeah, what do you think of it?
I like it a lot. I see, as with anything that I read from Lenin, it's his observations in a lot of ways are timeless, it seems.
As long as there's capitalism, there's Lenin's observations are timeless.
Yeah.
But hopefully one day that he will be. That's what Alexander Buzgalin said. One day it will be, he will be, what do you call it?
Outdated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Yeah. I of course, as you know, it's difficult to get people to read theory, and it's frustrating.
In the core.
Yeah.
Only in America.
Sure. Here in the US.
It's not difficult in any other place. Like, in fact, people have literally learned how to read theory.
Mm-hmm. And I have friends who are like, they have started to radicalize their politics, and they're like, oh, well, we need to start making plans of how we're going to do this and that. And I'm like,
what is to be done?
What is to be done? That we don't have to reinvent all of this, and we shouldn't. It's already there. We just have to apply it to the specifics of our current time.
I mean, even before then, I would say just know how to do critical analysis, because there's no, if you can't find the connection, a lot of people just can't find the connection between, say, the US, they just don't have the history. I mean, if you can't fix what you don't know, what a problem you don't understand. So even understanding the problem, I would say we're not even at even close to even thinking about the solution, because most people don't even understand the problem.
No, and they don't, we're not taught investigation skills, because why would the capitalists want us to have that taught to us? Why would they teach us why would they teach us how to recognize logical fallacies or cognitive biases, or, use the scientific method to, approach ideas? I have an, situation with a relative who saw a pre-post non-peer reviewed medical article and is making her medical decisions based upon that. And I'm trying to say, there's a process these things need to go through before that information is deemed reliable. But because it lights up her cognitive biases, The
thing about this is that, unfortunately, the system has failed them enough that even medical, even ones that have gone, you'd be surprised by the kind of utter rubbish that have been peer reviewed and published as science.
Oh, certainly.
Hey, so I don't entirely fault your relative, because it's capitalism but what she does need to do is learn how to read through the paper and understand whether it's logical or not logical, or whether it's what's going on. Are they making sense? Is their experimentation method sound, et cetera, et cetera?
Who's funding it?
Who's funding it is lots of other things. But unfortunately, liberals don't want to do anything other than repeat, believe science. And the point of science is that it requires no belief. You should be able to reproduce everything. And so I don't fault her too much, because it is capitalism. Yes, there's so much you can't trust. So she's not really, I don't know what to say.
It was the study out of Israel that stated that people who've had COVID-19 have more and better antibodies than people who've been vaccinated. And
it might be true.
Maybe it's true.
We don't know. But
we don't know. But
people but doesn't mean you should get COVID, because you don't know what happens.
She was hospitalized.
Oh, wow.
for it. Yeah. Almost died from it. So it's like, and it's her decision to whether she vaxes or not. But like, I looked into who funded that study, where it came out of. And it's like, you shouldn't just trust what the headline says on a capitalist owned news source, because they love sensationalizing these papers. And they, if they mention that it's not, yet really been proven, you're fortunate and if they do, it's usually in small print at the bottom. So it's, I think it gets back to, like you said, the system has failed. It's not failing according to its own purpose. The U.S. state
purpose beautifully. It has not failed at all.
Yeah. But, as far as we are not served by it, and so we cannot expect that we will be given, like Audre Lorde says, the master will not give you the tools to tear his house down.
Obviously.
That's it's not the exact quote, but it's the same idea, they don't teach critical thinking or, certainly not dialectics, because they don't want the working class to, be able to see through all of this propaganda.
But the thing is that if you read Mao's on idealism, you'd realize that, like I said, they have to create a certain lifestyle for the working class for it to even work in the first place. Like that, like people who have actual problems to solve immediately know what dialectical materialism is. The illiterate peasants in Tsarist Russia did. So that's where the chicken and egg comes from, is that they have to be, in order to just have a completely idealistic outlook in life, they have to have a certain amount of comforts, I guess.
Yeah. That comfort bubble, it's
like you can't do much about it because, unfortunately, it's a hard, even Lenin didn't know how to solve it, but I guess, besides, I guess the easiest thing is at least I don't know, well, at least making sure that, I don't know, just making sure that I guess the best thing is, the best friend of the working class was the Soviet Union when it existed. And now it is going to be another China. So I guess that's what the working class need to remember until something happens.
Yeah, it's I think that, I keep reading from, from outside the US, comrades outside the US who say, what you can do best is try to, dismantle imperialism from the inside, whatever you're able to do.
Well, okay,
and support existing socialism.
Exactly. That's exactly. And so what I guess that's exactly it, because Lenin even explained how socialism starts where the link is the weakest. And so I guess what people don't realize, I guess, is what you can do is, because for the most part, the bourgeoisie don't need your enthusiasm, but just your, I guess, like I said, lots of things can happen. Like in Vietnam, for example, they couldn't get enough soldiers to not frag. They had to pull out of Vietnam because it was dangerous. So for the empire, so I guess the weakness lies in that, in that it doesn't take too much to kind of at least support actual socialist systems, I guess. Or basically, yeah. That's what a lot of people don't understand is that you shouldn't even support. It doesn't even matter. You should support every country to have its own sovereignty, because if the country is bad enough, all you need to do is just translate Lenin's collected works, and they will like become socialist,
Right?
because that's where like the truth leads to. But they need to be sovereign for that. So. A lot of people are like, why do you talk about Thailand when it's still a monarchy? And I'm like, well, there's one thing. The billionaire is the opposition candidate is a billionaire. So there's at least some things that money can't buy, apparently, in Thailand. And so it's a little complicated. But the U.S., as far as I know, the U.S. is trying to coup the current government. So, and they put this like a guy who's a billionaire, like Anathorn Jungana, whatever his name is. And so I'm like, wait a minute. If the billionaire is in opposition and he needs the U.S. government to help him overthrow their government, there must be something money can't buy. Right. So I think it should go broader than just all socialist, like existing socialist countries to people's sovereign, like every country's sovereignty.
Agreed. That is a very good point. You know, I'm reading the book My War with the CIA by Prince Norodin.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. He's a little bit of a drama queen, so I don't completely trust him, but
I can tell. I mean, it's definitely he's pretty snarky in some spots too, though.
But he's a little bit of a drama queen too. So.
He definitely is. Well, they even described him as a bon vivant. You know,
what does that mean?
Like a kind of like a society person, like someone who really
who likes being in the center of attention.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, he didn't deny it. He accepted some of the criticisms lobbed at, that they lodged against him. But, like he talked about how when the U.S. abandoned a lot of military equipment, he was like, little did I realize that President Nixon would become the second largest supplier of military equipment to Cambodia, because they took it, because they left it behind. And it reminded me a bit of the Taliban in Afghanistan taking.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
So with the Pol Pot, the U.S. was actively supporting Pol Pot. So basically, they didn't abandon the military equipment. They just literally gave it to the Khmer Rouge in order to create a hostile front against Vietnam. Well, so the Taliban, on the other hand, like the U.S., like flooded. I mean, like you should listen to our episode on Afghanistan if you have not. To historicallysubstack.com. And when you listen to our episode on Afghanistan, you'll understand that the U.S. poured just like it was raining weapons. So everyone in Afghanistan has or had all kinds of weapons because it was like raining weapons. So there's a little bit of a different situation, I would say, because the Kissinger actively supported and the U.S. actively supported Pol Pot, while with the Taliban, the U.S. was raining weapons and it trickled down upon them.
Right. I think this quote was from before Pol Pot. I think this was...
The Khmer was around. No, the Khmer was... I know exactly what you're saying. Okay, so there was the okay. The Khmer Rouge was victorious in year zero, which is about 1975. But they were created much, much, much early towards the Eastern Front as like so Vietnam, well, there's North Vietnam and South Vietnam. And the reason I know this is because I have it really fresh in my mind because I'm doing Think You're in Hell video montage for Colin Powell. And so I was just like looking this up. But so there's like North Vietnam and South Vietnam and Thailand it's actually Laos kind of like hugs it this way. Cambodia's here. And so they called this the Ho Chi Minh Trail because it was, anyways, they did not so there was if there was a neutral force in Cambodia, they wouldn't do anything. So they wanted a hostile force to be pushing up against the Ho Chi Minh Trail when the military kind of tried to unify the country. So yes, in that Pol Pot didn't come to power, but there was still for a long, long time, there was a hostile guerrilla force or whatever you want to call it over there. That's what but yeah. So and that was done on purpose.
I think it was it in 1963 that I can't remember the year, where he said they were no longer accepting U.S. aid. This is when that quote about Nixon was from. The weapons.
U.S. aid is U.S. aid U.S. Agency for Intern. 1963, he said, "I assure you, there would have been if I had not rejected American aid." Oh, yeah, it was 1963 when by rejecting American aid, he rejected having the hostile force push up. He did not want to use the national military to be that hostile force to push up against Vietnam. So he was wanting to be neutral.
Yes. Yeah. And that was the whole thing, is that the U.S. threatened, if you take aid from the Soviets from China.
Hold on. Those are different aids. So the U.S. is Agency for International Development. It's a shock doctrine. It comes with privatization and all these conditions.
Right.
So that is different. And so let's not get that confused with the word to help or aid.
Oh, no, for sure. He talks about.
I know. I want to, Americans don't have this in their head. So I always say that whenever somebody uses the word aid, I always have to explain it is Agency for International Development. It is the U.S. government investing in a way that it will be profitable for private corporations to set up manufacturing, sometimes if they set it up, or extract raw materials from child slaves. Yes. But so and the Soviet Union or China does not have the same conditions because their economy is different. So when you engage in international relations with them, they don't have these same conditions. Even modern day capitalist Russia doesn't have the same conditions. They have a completely. So I guess I just wanted to clarify that
for sure. People,
because most people in America are very they hear the word aid and they don't hear Agency for International Development. They think
or NED, the
National Endowment for Democracy. Yeah, that's the opposite of democracy.
Yes. And in the book he talks about how the Soviets were offering to build a hospital, a 500-bed hospital, and fully staff it with medical staff. And, the U.S. ambassador said, if you do that, you lose all aid,
all
U.S. aid.
No. All material support via military or also industrial development for private corporations.
Yes. And that was the other point he made, is the state they would not give money to the Cambodian state.
The U.S. that would
only to private, capitalists who were going to profit off of exploitation in Cambodia.
The entire World Bank system is set up is basically for that, in that if you have, it's just like privatization, and it's like a big welfare state for corporations.
I read the Jakarta Method as well. I'm reading Blowback by Christopher Simpson regarding how
the Nazis. Yep. We
Nazis.
Listen to our episode this week on Operation Gladio. We go through most of the
I'm excited about that. I saw that there's a Gladio episode, and I was excited to see that. And I'm also reading Killing Hope by William Bloom, about everything. And I know that there's not all of these sources need to be read knowing there's just like anything, there's going to be a bias. And
William Bloom's not so much. William Bloom is good, except he touches a lot of subject, but nothing goes in depth. But so he's a good introduction. So I don't think there's too much of a bias with William Bloom. It's just that he does like a lot of like a touch and go thing, like where it's not depth, but it's a good introduction. Right. With Killing Hope, of course. With regards to blowback, I read parts of it. It seems accurate. I just like, it's just like nothing new, just because I have gone through so many of the CIA and Nazi war crimes disclosure that it's like, what else? What did you, I'm not surprised.
Right.
What's the third book you mentioned?
My War with the CIA. And that's...
No, we know we had that. You mentioned one more book.
The Jakarta Method.
Okay, well, my main problem with actually, okay, I'm just going to say it. Okay, so listen to our episode with Brian Mayer, where we talk about how he kind of was skeevy with regards to Lula. But the main problem is that, again, in the Jakarta Method, he goes through like gory, the thing that you're allowed to do is go through atrocity porn 40 years too late. But you're not allowed to like critique the economics. Like, so he didn't mention I'm pretty sure he didn't. Did he mention the Geneva Conference at all? Because I don't remember him mentioning in 1967. Did he mention that? I
can't remember often.
So he did not mention that. Okay. So he did not mention the Geneva Conference, where they basically like divided up all the but the Geneva Conference. And so it's like there's a lot of atrocity porn and not enough. Why are they committing these atrocity analysis?
Right. Yeah. Blowback, so far, the criticism I would have is he seems to place blame on the Soviets without any real material reason to do it.
Obviously, like, the U.S. Well, he couldn't get published back when he had to like deny. Like, I mean, during the Cold War, you just could not like. Right.
And that's what I figured is it had to be to satisfy editors who
or make sure. Or not get killed, but I don't know, like
like Gary Webb
or other people. Like so, essentially, the main thing is that the scum. Well, I guess listen to our Gladio episode, but it's the hold on 1 second.
Like he would say, "Oh well, the USSR could have been more forthcoming with the US."
How much longer do you have? How much longer do you have, Barb?
I'm open if you are.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, in this case, we're gonna do just one quick piece, but it's actually a letter, and it's about all the good. Like they don't talk about all the good things Lenin did because our press it sucks. So you're gonna love this. All
right, so this is from March of 1920, and he says, a number of monasteries outside Petrograd should be taken over to accommodate defective and homeless children and adolescents. Lenin.
Yep. And it was done.
Good.
So what he did, because the monasteries had so much land, and they also converted some of them to hospitals for children. But he was like, all these monasteries, like take them over and give them to like homeless children or children with orphans. And so, but you'll never hear about this in the capitalist press because they spin this as Lenin cracking down on religion.
Yeah. Well, at the part of the religious class that the capitalists care about got cracked down on.
Well, I mean, it gets worse when you go through 1940s and stuff like that, but it's fun. Yeah. So sometimes like I like to, it's kind of like another thing is sometimes I wonder if they're like, they always want to see Lenin being secretly evil and they're disappointed when he's not because because it's like a reflection of them, like it makes them feel worse about themselves.
Well, and a lot of times they're projecting, well, I wouldn't do that if I was in that position, so they're really more telling on themselves a lot of times.
So how do people find you and your blog?
Well, I have the blog at comradeburb.com, and it's BIRB. And I also have a link tree that's under Comrade Birb, and I have a lot of links there. That's also, I think, linked on the front page of my website. And I'm on Twitter. I have a big page on Facebook, but I'm on another 30-day ban as of yesterday.
What happened? You can use. I can make you mod of my Facebook page so that I never use it. So if you want,
yeah,
I
would be happy to do that.
Jenna, are you a mod of historically? If so, feel free to make her a mod.
I'll check. I don't know if we had an issue. Like, I don't know if we ever
okay
that part.
I haven't used. Yeah, I try not to use Facebook at all.
I hate Facebook. Honestly, if they've been threatening to unpublish my page, because what happened is I kept getting reported by white nationalists, like mass reported.
Well,
and they managed to kill my original account, and I'm on a secondary one now that's on a ban. So
come on, VK. There are no white nationalists on VK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like so at least you'll have a backup page. So VK is like the Russian version of Facebook, and
cool.
So at least you'll have a backup version of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on LiveJournal for many, many years, and then I went through a divorce and killed my account on there probably 15 years ago. But I miss that format of social media quite a bit.
How was that?
That was like a personal blog, basically, but everybody could interact with one another. It was, kind of almost like Dear Diary, but online. Or if you wanted to share something, and you could insert graphics and, links, obviously, there was a lot of short code that you could put in, and it was pretty nice. But I don't know if it even still exists anymore.
No, it exists because sometimes, like, I found Navalny's LiveJournal page from or at least the archives did, and that's how I found out he was like a fracking lawyer, gas oil company lawyer. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Same thing. So like that's the one bad. So it still exists, but I haven't ever used it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to go check it back out and see.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to check out VK.
Yeah, I'll invite you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, with that, thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we will. Hopefully we can have you back again in a few months or so. It'll be fun.
I would enjoy that.
Okay. Well, have a good rest of the day.
Much. You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had a good episode. And let's see what some of the questions and comments are. Okay, let's see. In USA, let's see where it is. Remember the peer review that smoking would be good for your health, or the fossil fuel studies about climate? They lie by omission. I don't know the peer review about smoking being good for your health, but I do know about the fossil fuel study. I see organized religion as always making problems, power and money issues, thinking they know all. Well, like I said, religion is a reflection of society. So Google, actually, somewhere on my TikTok, I have spoken about Father Camilo Torres Restrepo, who was a priest from Colombia, and he was like basically saying things like, if the bourgeoisie, if they cede power, we will take it peacefully, but if the bourgeoisie resort to violence, we will blah blah blah. So, well, he got assassinated by the CIA. So, and then there's Archbishop Romero, who was also killed by the Arena people from El Salvador. And in El Salvador, actually, the right-wing nutjobs had a saying that says, "Be a patriot, kill a priest." So, like I said, it is literally a reflection of what is going on in society. Unfortunately, what is going on in your society is that often, yes, the churches play the worst reactionary role, but it is not universal to all religious institutes. Not even like the Catholic Church is even like bifurcated. Oh, thank you so much, Neil. The most damning one I can think of were the Harvard sugar studies denying the role of sugar in heart disease. Wow. Like I said, the Catholic Church has a bifurcated role. In Europe, they were literally collaborating with, like Hitler was a Catholic, of course, and they were literally collaborating with Nazis. Joseph Tiso was there. Everyone in Poland who was Catholic was kind of a Nazi. But at the same time, in Central and South America, Catholic priests were playing a completely different role. And if it's just one church, and then you go to all the other churches, it's like you can't generalize about religion. Okay, so the Mujahideen, there was a British Foreign Services document that literally said that they were wealthy bourgeoisie landowners who were missing their slaves, but you can't get the U.S. public to support people getting their slaves back, so they had to make it seem like they were fighting for something greater, like their religious freedom. But check out my YouTube video of Zbigniew Brzezinski. Let's see. Use the premise. Not always. The Catholic Church is actually sometimes has done excellent work around the world and it also has done horrific things like manage Yasinovich, the concentration camp. So, yeah, sadly, you can't just, What is the MBTI test? I don't have a thought process. It's just like my mind wanders to the first thing I think of. And I realize I've been listening to myself and I realize I don't complete a lot of sentences. So I need to work on completing sentences and not listening to half of a thought. Oh, I am ESPN or something. ESPT, ESPF, ESPJ, ESPK. Oh my God. Gracias, Mr. Difficili. Pair character lifting some weights saying, keep it up. Gracias. Pair character. Am I pairship now? I should start lifting. I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Are there anything else? I don't know. Okay. Ouch. Let's see. What else can I talk about? What was I? Oh, yeah. Again, it seems like some internet people are getting the whole thing about the revolutionary potential in the Imperial Core really confused. So they're like, I don't know why these people continue to do this, but I was literally talking about members. Okay, I was literally talking about members of the U.S. Armed Forces. What people don't realize is how easy it is for a third world country to be Okay, let me first answer this, my thought. So what is easy is for any third world country to be Marxist-Leninist because you don't want your children to be child slaves in a cobalt mine. You'd much rather have them go to school. And the only way that ever happens is through Marxism-Leninism, or else your child is going to be a child slave in a cobalt mine, and then they're going to die, and then their child will be another child slave in a cobalt mine, and so forth. So, in order for there to be like a viable communist movement, you just need to translate Lenin's collected works in whatever local language they speak, and boom, it happens. So the U.S. needs to have, that's why if you look at how many Soviet bases were there outside of the Soviet Union versus U.S., there's a large mismatch because the Soviet Union literally didn't have to do much. Like they could compete because people are willing to die for their country, but they're not willing to. And and then third world patriotism is far different than first world patriotism. So people are willing to die for the chance to have a country that is worth loving, like Vietnam, or they're willing to fight for more than their country. They're willing to die for their revolution. But people are not willing to die to upkeep imperial profit. Like, you can't get Vietnamese people to die for U.S. profits. That just won't happen. So you have to send Americans in there. And that is the fundamental issue, is that it is a house of cards. The minute you get American soldiers to just like stop doing it, defect, whatever, everything falls. So the question is, why is there this? It's both a house of cards. That's the paradox, is that it's a house of cards, but it's a house of cards made out of concrete because it's lasted for so long. So what is the cause? None of us know. None of us even have any idea, because it is a very, very confusing, complicated topic that needs to be unraveled. But instead of unraveling this issue that none of us know the answer to, where we could actually discuss things, people are busy rehashing the same dumb argument that everyone had and settled in 1914 in the Second International. So that's basically it. I don't know why. What is Cry Korea? Let's see. Anything else? I don't know what Cry Korea is. I need some AKs. What's an? Maybe we shouldn't say these kind of things on my live stream. I hope you mean by AKs Arkansas, because please don't say things that could get me mass reported on my live streams, please. Please delete things if you say, just don't say it. You don't have to say it. Anyways, let's see. Do we have anything else to talk about? Oh, yeah. Nah, I won't do it. Okay, so Washington Post has this really dumb article about how people... Oh, okay. Arkansas. AR is the abbreviation of Arkansas. AK is Alaska. Okay, yeah. Please just don't do that. It's best to keep it general. I mean, specific plans are always going to get you cracked down upon and should not be done in public. General education topics are fun, and you can do it whatever you want, because they know that nothing's going to happen with general education, and it's not really a threat to them. So they don't even care. But yeah, I was watching, I was like making some TikTok videos, and I was watching this really trippy 1986 newsreel where they were introduced, where they went to the School of Americas, and then they introduced this like random general. And then I checked on how this is aged, and I'm like, oh, he gang raped nuns. It has not aged at all well. Awesome that's a good one. We need more awesome Ishikays. Yes, Ishikays. It's Arkansas. Arkansas is a gas station on my way home to Kansas. But why is there a silent S in Arkansas? And never mind. I don't even know. Yeah, so our Krishna Swami, come on. I don't know actually how I pronounce my name. It's either or, because I just am too tired to care. Esha or Isha, I'll take either or. And I interchangeably do it apparently, because I get confused too. Yeah, I just don't care. I'm so, like half the time, I've given up. Esha? Yeah, that's how my mom and dad pronounce it, Esha. Esha. My mom and dad call me Esha, so my sister also calls me Esha. But some people in school called me Isha, and I don't know what to do other than, I think I just got tired. I'll accept both, Esha or Isha, because I think I got tired on, I mean, I don't know. I think people were, is this exhausting? Krishna Swami, yep. Anyways, what's a hard E and a soft E? Okay, so excellent. Yeah, so that, okay. Anyways, this week we're going to have our second episode, a part 2 of Operation Gladio. It's going to be exciting. And then join us on Monday for Monday Mornings with Mao at 9 a.m. We're going to have Comrade Zoo again, and we'll see what we need to do. I like Mao's, I like the way he goes through a lot of the Mao's teaching. Okay, so the nice thing about Mao is that Mao is not a troll, and he's like nice, simple. He's good for Americans. But he's not, because he's not a troll, and he's not cracking jokes and being sarcastic and wasting his time with he's easier to understand because he's not doing what Lenin does, like insults, jokes, superfluous insults, just like thousands of things. But so I think he's good for a certain type of American. Yeah. Of course, I'm watching the India-Pakistan cricket game. Who is, like, yeah. I always get very, let's see. Oh, by the way, did I tell you about how in 2015 I went to the World Cup final? It was so good. Okay. It was New Zealand versus, yes, we should troll Samira. And she's from Bangladesh, so why does she even support Pakistan? It doesn't even make sense. Okay. Nope. I did not watch England. And no, I did not. I know that Brian Mayer covered that story of the Brazilian campesinos resisting the police with regards to Was it I don't remember. But I don't know. No, she's not from Pakistan. She is Bengali. No, she's not Bengali. There's a language that they speak in Bangladesh that's not Bengali. It starts with a CH. I can't remember, but she's that. Or maybe she's Bengali. But definitely not. She's from East Pakistan back in the day. She's a Bengali, is all I'm going to say. Yeah, she's... No, Samira is not Syrian. She is Bengali. She's Indian. Well, she's from the subcontinent. She's one of us, I guess. One of the billion of us. Anyways, with that, I will please check out Come On Mondays. Be sure to check out videos and clips I make throughout the week. Leave a comment so that you can help the algorithm. How come she gets to be on CGTN and I don't? Unfair. Yeah, leave a comment for the algorithm, and I don't know what else to say. Oh, Putin said that capitalism is dying, so that's good. Anyways, with that, I will say Slobodu narodu, smrti fašizmu.